Hey, my friend, I want to share with you a part of my journey with staying sober, being my authentic self, and becoming the best version of myself. Because maybe there is someone out there who is also struggling with becoming sober or having a big challenge in their life, and maybe there is a little bit of inspiration or encouragement for them. My journey feels at the moment really rough because I a part of me is dying off. My old self, my old identity is crumbling. And I have inside of me there is a war going on through between my ego and my true nature, my true authentic self. And there are a lot of emotions, also because of childhood trauma. Because, for example, I lost my home at a very, very early age in my life. I guess when I was around 5 years old. And I was terrified. I was terrified of losing my family. I was terrified of losing my home and being alone and without knowing how to survive as a kid. And this experience got so deeply imprinted into my subconscious mind that my whole identity was built around it. And I developed a very strong ego because my ego constantly tried to protect me and to survive, and like I said, also to it helped me to overcome the challenge, but also it always wanted to prevent me from experience this again. And as got older, I had to face homelessness like 3 times more. And I learned something really important, what helps me now in this moment. It was there is something much, much scarier than being homeless. The experience of being homeless itself was not that scary for me. Of course, it was really challenging at some points, and it was hard for me to have faith in myself and trust that life will get better again. But what was really scary, or the most scary part, is the fear of becoming homeless. And I became addicted to alcohol and drugs at a very early age, like around 12 years old, and I'm 31 now. And like I said, the fear of becoming homeless was much, much scarier than the experience itself. And I always used drugs and alcohol to self-medicate, always, especially when I had this fear kicking in of a challenge of becoming homeless. I used to self-medicate, and it made it a little bit easier in the moment to deal with my emotions and to keep going. But since I made the decision that I don't want to depend on alcohol or drugs to live a fulfilled life, my whole life, I was chasing freedom, and I want to live a free life. That means I want to live a sober life. But now it's the first time for me to experience this fear of homelessness in a sober way. And I can tell you, it's no joke. That's that's one that's not a nice experience, because I have all this knowledge now of my past experiences, how I overcome homelessness. And I know that being homeless, it's not that scary. You just live in the moment, and of course you are hungry sometimes, and it's cold and whatever. But now when I experience these emotions and this fear as a sober person, it brings me way, way, way back into my childhood when I was 5 years old and how it felt back then. Because back then it was terrifying. Because when I was 5 years old, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't know how it would be to be homeless and without your tribe. It was pure terror. And like I said, I constantly tried to numb myself and to avoid to feel these emotions again. And I can tell you, my body is shaking inside of me. It's not because of a withdrawal or something. It's just because of the fear. And I'm not shaking like physically, but it feels like shaking inside of me. And I really, to release it, I need to move my body. I had to cry a lot because this emotion, we have to release these emotions in some way. And maybe you have a different experience, but it's all quite the same. It's a fear of being abandoned or not liked or not enough or whatever. And it's hard for everyone, for men and women, but in our society, it's not like so accepted to for a man that a man cries or something. And this is why there are a lot of emotions of guilt and shame and whatever. And this makes it pretty intense, pretty challenging. So if you are thinking about to get rid of some sort of addiction, and it's not just about alcohol or drugs, I used everything as a coping mechanism. I binge watched uh, shows and Netflix, for example, I was constantly constantly. I was overeating. I was like binge eating, and I did like everything you can imagine. I used pornography and sex and masturbation, everything I could to avoid certain emotions. And by doing that, we when we avoid these emotions, we trap it in our body. And this is the point where we create this endless cycle. We suppress something, but it always pops up in some way. It shows also, it gets triggered by outside events. And I relived my this circle of emotions. Like I said in previous videos, we are constantly projecting our inside world to the outside. We are creating our reality. And whatever you have inside of you trapped, you will face it in your 3D reality at some point. You will face a situation which triggers this kind of emotions. And to change our reality, to become to get a better outcome, to become a better, to get a better life, we have to break the habit of being ourselves. We have to break this circle of emotions. And like I said, my now when and why do I face, in my case, my fear of homelessness now kicks in, not just because I am sober. When everything is fine around me, when I have enough money, when I have a nice home, I don't experience these emotions. But at the moment, I don't have like any money. I have to move to another place. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to go. I don't have the money to go. And this is what triggers all this fear inside of me. And this is where my ego kicks in. And my ego wants to protect me at all costs, and my ego tries to solve my problem. It tries to find solutions. Uh, it's overtaking the show. It's constantly thinking about the problem which it cannot solve, because the ego is just a record of the past. If I would have known in the past how to make enough money, I would have already done it. So at the moment, my ego has no possibility to solve this. All I can do, but it wants to push me to make a decision, to get out of this state. But in my past, I was constantly, in my past, I did this. When this fear came up and my ego was running the show, it gave me some input, and then I made a choice out of full survival mode, out of fear. And it never worked out in the long run. So to overcome these emotions and to stay anchored in my new personality, in my new identity, I have to constantly remind myself, who am I? Am I my old program? Am I my old identity? Or is there more? What is my purpose? What is my passion? And the problem kicks in when there is a lack of clarity. But it's not actually a problem, but it triggers the ego because you say, okay, I have a purpose, I have a passion, but I have no clarity. Then suck, ego kicks in and says, okay, I'm searching for clarity to make a move. But from my experience, it's not a good decision, or it's not a good way to make a decision out of stress and fear. It's only it can be if it's really a life-threatening situation. But I know it is a big challenge at the moment, but I also know consciously it's not life-threatening. I already survived like 100 times a lot of difficult situations, also homelessness. So I know I will survive. So there is no need to make a fear-based decision. And to comfort my ego, to not push my ego away, but to put it in place where it belongs, I tell myself, okay, now it's November, I will find a solution, the solution will find me, and if not, I will make, I still can make in next year, March, for example. In March, I can make a decision out of survival mode, out of stress, out of fear, if I have no answer to it, if I don't know how to decide. And that's how I buy myself time. So I can buy myself like now 3 months, 4 months to anchor myself and to remind myself who is boss here. Because the ego is like the what ego is when your body is overtaking your mind. And by doing that, by reminding myself, I set a time frame, I set myself, okay, I say myself, I am in charge. I decide when I make a move, I decide out of which emotion I make a move or out of which state I make a move. Because there is no lion around here, there is no war going on, luckily. So I have a little bit of time. And I remind myself I'm in charge. Thank you, ego, but you stay cool until March, for example. And to set also my boundaries for myself, with myself. It's at the moment not for other people, but it's what I allow for myself, what's going on with myself, to make the decision, to make the position clear, who's in charge. Because where our attention goes, energy flows, and where our attention goes, where our focus goes, we go. And I learned one thing in the past. It's not good to focus on the worst case scenario. If you're struggling on the street with your car and you're leaving the street and there is a tree, don't look at the tree, you will hit it, mostly. We have to look in the direction where we want to go. And if we are vulnerable, if we are unstable, like now is a difficult time for me. I never faced this challenge sober. I know it, how I did it in the past with alcohol and drugs, but without, there is like something missing. And this is where I need to reprogram myself. I have to remind myself, what do I want to focus? I know I'm not focusing on the worst case. I'm expecting everything will work out. And if something happens, I will find a way to deal with it. And there is no reason to stress out now. Sometimes we have to treat our body like a dog. It's simple as that. Some people maybe don't don't like this, but it's like that. Especially if you are struggling with addiction or something, you have to say who is in charge. And it's gonna be okay. It will become easier. It will become easier. So, if you made it this far, I would truly appreciate it if you hit the like button, and if you write me a comment. Maybe you just write the word sober in the comments down below to make it easier for the algorithm to bring out the message, because maybe someone really needs to hear this. And yeah, because maybe this message is not for you, but maybe somebody else could use it. So I would truly appreciate it. And I thank you so much for spending time with me. See you in the next video.